we're talking, this is by the Belisi, we're talking about Unit 11, and we're talking about the things that are on the whiteboard, or the blackboard there, namely first-person commands, second and third-person commands, and how they work in Greek. Because, as I mentioned, I think, in the first video, we have second and third-person forms for commands, imperatives, and then in the first person, what you do is you use the hortatory subjunctive. We just want to make clear that that's the rule, okay? The hortatory subjunctive, to remind you, is subjunctive, that's a main verb of a sentence, and it can be either present or aorist subjunctive, depending on what you want to use, and it's first person singular, or plural, okay? But us do it, let me do it. It's the way to translate it. So that takes the place of a first-person imperative, okay, in Greek. There are a couple of other little details about how imperatives work that we're discussing here. One of them is this use of small particles. There's age, or agede. Age looks like, and is probably, then the only imperative of the verb ago, which means do. So it was a way of making an imperative, do it. And then you had the verb, okay? But it's been demoted, and it's happened at a very early stage in languages, to being just a combination of particles that you put with the particle de. De is just a strengthened form of the particle de. So it's just a more emphatic form of age to signal that the next word is an imperative. Okay, it's just like the Spanish thing of putting the upside down exclamation point in front of a sentence, right? Same kind of idea. Belisi, why don't you talk about two commands in one sentence and how that works?
Basically, sometimes when you have a string of commands, more than two, two or more rather, you can put some of them in participles, especially the first ones physically in the sentence, right? So you can have a participle and then something in the imperative, and you can translate them both as a command, like sit down and do this kind of thing.
And the participle is going to be a nominative participle agreeing with the supposed subject of the imperative, which is second person singular or third person singular, or second person plural or third person plural, both going to be nominative. Yeah, great. Well, that's it. It's a really, it's a beautiful thing to do with a bunch of imperatives, but you can do it with other things too. Lots of Greek sentences start with a participle like that in the nominative, as the book has been giving you mostly participles like that. Not all Greek sentences use participles that way, but lots of them do. But that's a really common way of doing multiple commands. Yeah. Okay. The last thing is, what happens in Greek when you want to negate commands, when you want to tell somebody, as people often do, don't do that. Right? In Greek, maybe you remember that we've learned a long time ago a way of doing this. In the lesson on the hortatory subjunctive, we also learned the prohibitive subjunctive, which you use in the aorist only, okay, and the second person singular and plural. So you do me and the aorist subjunctive of the second person singular and plural when you want to negate a command in the aorist, okay. You can also use the third person singular or plural for a negative command. Don't let him not do it, like in the Ten Commandments. Thou shalt not. Well, no, that's second person. All right, but anyway, you can do commands in Greek, and you do it also in Latin in the third person. Okay, the 12 tables in Latin are all third person commands. Let him not do that. That's the way it works. So it's a kind of formalization. But anyhow, so when it comes to aorist negative commands, you use the subjunctive, okay? And you can use the hortatory subjunctive for the first person. So you have a complete paradigm, effectively, of aorist subjunctive first, second, and third persons, singular and plural, for negative commands. In the singular, however, you use the hortatory subjunctive with me, okay, for the first person singular, but the regular imperative forms that we just talked about with me in the singular for the second and the third person. So everything is, if you will, in the way of negative commands, everything is me in the subjunctive except for the second and third person singular, okay? And So you have an opposition between present and aorist forms, and the aorist forms are all subjunctive. The present is a mix of present subjunctive and present imperative, so-called present imperatives. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right. That's it.